A very good evening to all of you who are watching and listening to me this evening. A very happy new year to you. This is the first program of Making the Case for this year, 2020, and I'm excited to be back here with you. 2020 is going to be a big year for all of us here in Guyana. Please excuse the voice if it sounds a little bit hoarse. We've been traveling across the length and breadth of this country, having a lot of public meetings and rallies, speaking to our people. So forgive me for being a little bit hoarse this evening, but don't pay attention to the voice, let's pay attention to the message this evening. A lot of things has happened since we met here last in December. And we've spent a lot of time last year discussing GCOM and the issues over there at GCOM. Now the list of electors are out, the revised list of electors, and we encourage all of you to check the list and to make sure your name is on the list and make sure that you are familiar with your polling place and your polling station so that on elections day there is no confusion, that you know exactly where you're going to vote. In a lot of cases, you'll be voting at the same polling place that you normally vote for at general elections. So if you know in 2015 you voted at a particular polling place, we encourage you to make sure that you go back there. And when you do so on election day, don't let anyone turn you away. If somebody's checking the list and they tell you that your name is not on that list and they redirect you somewhere else, make sure that you do not leave without casting your vote. If you are convinced that that is the place that you should be voting, please go inside. Don't let anybody turn you away at the gate. Go inside. Make sure you go to the polling clerk for him or her to check your name and to ensure that you vote. Now, GCOM says that Guyana has 661,378 eligible voters. Now, this is not unusual because there are a lot of persons who are on the list that should not be there, maybe because they have died and so on. People die, people pass away every day. So when APNU and AFC were calling for a clean list, we had to be measured in that approach. What is clean? That's what we had to ask ourselves. What is clean? Because the list will always have persons on it who shouldn't be there for various reasons. But as long as on polling day we have the right checks and balances in place, or we can have clean elections and we can have a free and fair elections. Also, the APNU commissioners have seen nothing wrong with this 661,000 plus voters, even though David Granger had said in an address to the nation that the list is bloated by 200,000 persons. And remember, we don't know where he got this figure from, if he just called it from the top of his head, but he was never pressed for a reason or pressed for where he got this 200,000 from, except to cause confusion. That's the only reason we can see why he would put out a figure like that. So that's on GCOM. Now, we need to discuss a very important issue tonight, and that we have to spend some time on the oil and gas sector, because that issue is very topical right now, and in this election season, people are coming to you, especially the APNU AFC, coming to you with all sorts of promises again and all sorts of things that they will not be able to deliver. So take, for example, what happened with the oil contract. So we know again that there have been failures in that sector. We have been completely sold out by Trotman and by the APNU AFC in that sector. They just signed away, they gave away our national patrimony. And then they're coming up with all sorts of defenses. So Trotman said, if you can recall, he said in July 2019, this is what he said. He said, at all material times, I acted on the advice and direction of the GGMC. I relied on the officers at GGMC at all times and was advised when the agreement was ready for signature. Now just imagine, you are signing as a Minister of Natural Resources, you are signing away a country's oil resources. This resource is so important that it's one of the last natural resources that we may find in Guyana. And this can take us to new heights, to new horizons. And he didn't see it fit to consult with experts with experience in the oil and gas sector. He relied on advice from the GGMC. He never read the contract, and we don't have any indication that even Mr. Granger has read this contract. Now that is not the worst of it, because we know that the first money that was collected, the 18 million signing bonus, we know that they had, for all intents and purposes, that money, we were never supposed to know about it. But you know, Jagdeo has big ears, and we have been an opposition that has continued to be the watchdog for the people of this country. And when Jordan was asked about it, when the media went to him and asked about it, he said, in his words, such a claim is a figment of the imagination of Jagdeo, and that there is no agreement for any bonus. I say these things to you because I want you to understand that these people are coming to you again, and they're asking you to vote for them again. These are examples of where the ministers who had all the powers in their hands sold us out. These are instances where they lied openly, blatantly. Jordan is on record saying that this 18 million signing bonus is a figment of Jagdeo's imagination. This is the nature of the people you're dealing with. This is on record. And they never apologized for making these statements. And when Granger was asked about it, he said he stand with his ministers. Whatever the minister said is, that's it. Then further to that, the contract is so bad, there's no ring fencing provision. We are starting in the negative. Where we've already been, Exxon has already submitted a bill for $10 billion. And we have no system in place in which to verify this expenditure. There's no system of checks and balance in which we can use to verify this expenditure. There is no local content legislation. So the Guyanese who is on the rig working all month, 12-hour shift in most cases, is earning 72,000 Guyana dollars, and the foreigner who is working on that rig is earning by the thousands of US dollars. And that is as a result of poor contract negotiation and no local content legislation. So Guyanese cannot look forward to benefiting directly from any involvement or any direct spill-off or training or education in this sector. That is how important local content is. It cannot be taken for granted. Now, the oil was found since 2015, and it was only in 2019, early last year, after the passage of the no confidence motion, and while they were an unconstitutional government, that they rushed and hurriedly passed the Sovereign Wealth Fund. Remember, this is 3 years after 2015 we found oil, and 3 years later, then they're rushing to pass the legislation, the Sovereign Wealth Fund legislation that will govern the proceeds of the oil. So we will have to take a look at this legislation because from all indications, the legislation is bad. It was hurriedly passed. There are a lot of flaws in it. And more importantly, it was passed in a period where the constitutionality of the government was called into question. Added to that, there is no regulatory body. The legislation was supposed to bring about the existence of the Petroleum Commission, which would be the oversight body for the fund. This is still, up to now, non-existent. It seemed to have been replaced with the Department of Energy, and we know that that Department of Energy and the person that heads the Department of Energy is grossly incompetent. So these are the people that are coming to you again now in 2020, when we should have been having this conversation a year ago, when we should have been preparing to go to the polls in March of 2019. These are the people that are coming to you now, the people that violated the Constitution, the people that never delivered on their promises. Even their 100-day plan is still outstanding. Almost 5 years later, they can't fulfill their 100-day plan. But they're coming to you to ask you for a second chance. They're coming to you to say, give us more time. And I urge everyone who is going to, every eligible voter, every right-thinking Guyanese, to look at what they have done. Give them a performance analysis, and then ask yourself, if these are the people that we want to remain in government, if these are the people that we can trust with the lies that they have told us, that we have witnessed ourselves, they promised a good life. But we know that this good life, we're still waiting on it. We know that based on what they have done, there is no good life to be had. They have sold us out in the oil and gas sector that they are now hoping would save the economy after they have neglected every other sector: housing, forestry, agriculture, sugar, rice, everything. After they have neglected all of the other sectors, they are now putting their hopes and dreams and coming to sell you these hopes and dreams that oil will save us. So they launched their campaign rally at the Durban Park. And let me tell you, Durban Park, of all places, is an embarrassment to this government. But they've spent so much money there. And if you remember Harman spending 20 minutes of his presentation in the National Assembly during the no confidence debate, he spent 20 minutes speaking or glorifying the Durban Park project, a project that we now know based on the Auditor General's report, which confirms what the PPP has been saying all along, that $600 million, $600 million is unaccountable for at that project. And this is the government that is calling themselves honest and decent. Can you imagine? I don't know if they take us for fools, they take Guyanese for fools. This elections is about the issues. They asked in 2015 for a chance. They got a chance to lead this country. People had a chance to see, people had a chance to compare, and they did what they had to do in the time that they had. And now they're coming to you to ask you for a second chance. You have to take a step back and ask yourself, do they deserve a second chance? Did they deliver the good life? Is my life even better now, in any small way than it was before? So you have to do that comparison for yourself. And the lies continue. I saw in the Chronicle of December 29, 2019, I'll ask the operator to put it up, Guyana's annual growth rate. And they projected, there it is on the screen there, and they projected a growth rate of 86% in 2020. This was published in the Chronicle newspaper. You can see the date at the top there, 86% growth rate. This was promptly debunked, not by PPP, but by the IDB. And I'll ask the operators to just put up this other, right. And this was a few days later, Friday, January 3rd, 2020. IDB tempers Guyana's projected growth in 2020 from 86% to 39%, echoes IMF that majority of wealth will leave the country. And there you see on the broken line, the estimated oil production, and then on the solid line, the estimated petroleum revenue transfer to budget. So that's the money that we'll actually going to get. So you see the production is very high, but the money that we're receiving over the next few years is very low and will peak maybe until later down in 2017 if you examine that chart. Thank you, Kevin. So again, they're coming to you with the dreams of a better life that will be delivered by the oil sector. And we see the tempered projected rates there. But Granger, David Granger thinks he's very smart. So he has a counter strategy for this. Now he's not selling you the good life now, because when he failed to deliver on the good life, he failed on his 100-day promise, and he failed on all the promises in the manifesto. He's coming to tell you now about a decade of development. 1 decade of development. So you have to wait now, not for one term, or for 100 days, or a year, or one term. Now he's coming to tell you about a decade of development. This is a gimmick. Let's not kid ourselves. This decade development is a gimmick by David Granger. And you have to see right through this. This is a tactic. He said at that campaign launch, which by the way, he brought, he had to import an artiste from Trinidad to get people to come to the rally. And they had, by their own admission, 287 buses to bring people to make up numbers at their campaign launch in a region that is their stronghold, which is Region 4. Region 4 is supposedly, I should say, supposedly their stronghold. But they didn't wait for the people to come out, because judging from what happened in 2018 at the local government elections, where at our city council, where the PPP grew in the number of seats from 2 to 7, we earned 5 more seats at the city council in a region that is traditionally PNC. And the PPP won in a landslide victory at the last local government elections in 2018. So they're paying attention. So they know that they've lost a lot of support. So they didn't want to launch, not have anything to attract the people. So they brought in a foreign artist, because I don't know, local artists are not good enough. They're never thinking about local content. So local content would have been to put a local artist there, but they imported one instead. and bring him to Cosdown Jagdeo. So even that they had to outsource. And Boston used 287 buses to bring in people to make up the numbers in Durban Park. So he told the people there that he's a CFAR man. That's what he said. He said, I'm a CFAR man. There he goes again. He's selling you. This is how he's trying to justify this decade of development. And if this wasn't so serious, and if our future did not depend so much on what happens at this election, this would be a joke. This would be a comedy. But it is very serious. And so I felt the need I have to highlight these things because, he gets up there and he says these things and people have to pay attention. You have to pay attention. You have to know what you're voting for. Politicians cannot come and sell you on dreams and promises that they cannot fulfill. You have had a chance to see what they plan to do and what they didn't do. You know that they have no agenda. A CFAR man, as he called himself, would have been able to see that the Amila Falls project would have been able to reduce your electricity bill to 1/3 of what it is today. A CFAR man would have been able to implement that specialty hospital that the PPP had on the agenda and presented in the National Assembly, but instead they cut those projects because you know why? They don't want it to be labeled PPP projects. They cut those projects. They didn't have your welfare at heart when they cut those projects. A CFAR man would have seen the benefits of those projects. And those projects do take a long time to materialize. But that's what a CFAR person would know. That once this is completed, they would understand the benefit that it brings to Guyanese. They would know that with lower electricity bills, the manufacturing sector can grow. Guyanese can spend less money on electricity, more money will be in their pockets. Instead, they not only killed the project, they went and they put VAT on electricity. They made it more expensive. They put VAT on water. They took away the subsidy from the pensioners. They made life harder. We're not making these things up. They put VAT on data. So the young people have to pay more now to use the internet. We're not making this. These are facts. And you know it because your pocket feels it. You know that all what we're saying, we don't come to you with lies. We don't come to you with gossip. We come to you with the facts. And I make it my duty that when I come on this program, I'm not coming to talk with water in my mouth. I'm bringing the facts to you. And I'm urging young people to be focused because this election will determine whether you have a bright future, whether you live in a country 5-10 years from now that will be transformed with a transformative agenda that the PPP has, or whether you will fall for David Granger and his lies and his decade of development. Now he wants you to give him a decade now. So he's not just asking for another year or another term. He wants a decade. And these are the kinds of empty things that they come with. This is Stabroek News, Saturday, January 4th. This is the headline. We have a plan. This is what Granger says. We have a plan. Granger asked voters for more time as APNU AFC launched its elections campaign. He launched an election campaign. They still have no manifesto. We still don't know what are the details in this plan. But they want more time to implement this secret plan. His plan is high secret, you know? So, and, you know, to compound the issue, and the funny part is, even the newspaper says, under the alternating themes of moving forward together and forward ever, backward never, they launched their campaign. So they can't even decide what is the theme of their campaign. They seem to have one every day. So they can't even decide what the theme is. So they don't know what the agenda is. They don't have a goal in mind. Because if they had a goal, they'd be able to plan on how we will get to that goal. This is how you plan for the future. That's what a CFAR man would do. You have a goal, and then you have the policies that are consistent with that goal. The PPP has always maintained that we are a pro-poor party, we are a national party, we are a working class party, and we had the policies to back up that. We had the policies that complement what a pro-poor party is about. The cash grant, the subsidies to pensioners, the subsidy that we kept in Linden for electricity. These are pro-poor policies. The 200 items that, essential items, basic essential items that now attract VAT, did not attract VAT prior to 2015 when the PPP were in office. That's what a pro-poor government does. It thinks about the ordinary man. It thinks about the person who's earning a minimum wage. Would they be able to live on this salary? Would they be able to pay rent, buy the basic essential items? That's what a pro-poor party does. And the PPP did that. And Harman had the gall to say that the PPP manifesto is not pro-poor. And we already spoke in our manifesto about reversing all of these things that they put bat on. And restoring some of the subsidies and the incentives that were there previously in order to get people back to work. You know, we're traveling the length and breadth of the country. We're holding public meetings. We're meeting people on the ground. And I go into these communities, like I went to IFLOT today, and you know, we go into all these other communities, and you can feel how stalled it is. Everybody's home, nobody's working. We need to get people back to work. Guyanese need to wake up every day and have a job to go to. They need to wake up every day and feel like they have a purpose. Only then we can stop this tit for tat. Only then we can weed out racism once and for all. Only then we can stop thinking small and start thinking big. Imagine if the PPP didn't build a Marriott hotel. Everybody comes and stays there, including Farmer Nappy, their artist. He came and he stayed, he cussed in Jagdeo, but he stayed at the Marriott. This Marriott that was so corrupt, this Marriott that they said they would turn into a hospital, we're still waiting. They love the Marriott now. Now the Marriott is like the best project ever. PPP project. Movie Town opened, employs thousands of people. Giftland Mall. Those are transformational things. Those are things that put people back to work. And they antagonize that man, the owner for the Movie Town Mall. Antagonize him for the land that he got under the PPP. But Bar Jagdeo was the CFAR man. He saw how many jobs would be created if he brought Movie Town here. He saw how many jobs would be created if they built the Marriott. And he saw how many jobs would be created when we push the housing sector. And the housing sector is very, very important too. People don't realize how important housing is. And that was driven by Irfan Ali, our presidential candidate. The housing sector not only provides low-cost housing, but it gets people back to work. Contractors go back to work. People sell materials. What did they do? They haven't developed a single house lot in almost 5 years. Not a single house lot have they developed. That sector is deteriorating. They did not have the foresight to see how useful that sector is. It's not just about giving people land. Instead, they did the opposite as well. They put VAT on building materials. They made it even more expensive, more difficult to own and build your own home. That is anti-pro-poor policies. No consideration whatsoever. All they're concerned about is tax collection. And then they boast about it in the media, and they put it in the Chronicle. How many billions of dollars they collected in taxes, as though that is something to boast about. The more money you collect, instead of generate as a government, is the more money out of the pockets of ordinary people. Because the tax got to come from the people. It's the people that are paying the taxes. You are impoverishing the nation with your tax collection. That's what you're doing. And people need to be aware. These are not complicated issues. We can sit down and we can discuss in the shops and in the salons and in the taxis and among ourselves, our friends, our families. We can discuss these things. This is how it happens in the United States. Go out to the meetings. When they come to you, go find out, go listen. When the PPP comes with their meetings, go listen. We're not coming to talk to PPP supporters alone. We're coming to talk to voters. We're coming to talk to Guyanese. And we are bringing to you the truth. We are presenting the facts. And then ultimately, you have to go and make your decision. And then they seem so vindictive that at the launch, Ramjatan spoke, he gave his presentation, and most of you would have known the controversy that came out of that because Ramjatan was not introduced as the prime ministerial candidate. He was introduced as the leader of the AFC and Minister of Public Security. There again, there is smoke. And where there's smoke, there's fire. So there's something else brewing there that we don't know about. Secrecy, again. Withholding information from the public. And then we heard them say, I believe it was yesterday or today's newspapers, that the full Cummings-Berg Accord will not be presented to the public. What is with the secrecy? You are coming to the people, you're asking them to vote for you, but you're not being honest with them. You're not being transparent. You're not being accountable. Where is the integrity? Where is the decency that they talk about, that David Granger talks about? Honesty and decency. Where is the honesty and the decency in this government? He says, paper says, according to Granger, over the last 4 years, there has been sustainable economic growth, education improvement, salary increases, and infrastructure development. According to Granger. That's the most important thing in this sentence. According to Granger. Not according to the World Bank report, not according to any IDB report, but according to Granger. So if he says it's so, it's so. That's what they want you to believe. That's what they want you to vote for. And then it gets more ridiculous. He talked at the campaign, at the launch, about getting rid of the no confidence motion provision in the Constitution. Is that honesty? Is that integrity? Is that decency? Is that the example that the president is setting? We need so many things reformed in our Constitution. So many things that are more important. And the only thing he sees as important is abolishing the no confidence provision. That to him is top priority. It's his priority. It's not the nation's priority. It's Granger's priority, because that provision cut down the life of his government. He had no intentions, make no mistake, even though we're having elections 1 year later than we should have due to the passage of the no confidence motion. Make no mistake, they never planned on having elections in 2020 to begin with. Time like now, they would have started with this house-to-house registration, and they would have delayed the elections for another 2 to 3 years to get the list sorted out. They had no intentions of holding elections in 2020. So the no confidence motion has still served its purpose, because it is guaranteeing that we have elections in 2020. And so on the 2nd of March, people need to realize the importance. The agenda of David Granger and his administration is on full display for all who were paying attention. He wants to remove the no confidence provision. That is the only check and balance that we have on the government. That if you fail, we will serve you this. And the National Assembly served him with a no confidence motion. All the parliamentary democracies of the world have a one majority vote that can pass a no confidence motion. All you need is one vote, and a government can fall. But David Granger wants that removed because he thinks that he is entitled to be president for 5 years and maybe 10 years and however long. He wants to be there without respecting the electoral will of the country. So that is Mr. Granger for you. Then we saw Vala Lawrence having another case of the foot and mouth disease with her publication on the Ministry of Public Health website. This most embarrassing publication. Kevin, can you put that up there for me, please? So she made some declarations a few days ago, I believe it was. This was posted on the ministry website, and it says, "We make the following declarations on the basis of the Word of God." And I don't believe I have to go on to read this 11-point declaration. She has 11 declarations there, and declaring in the Lordship of Jesus Christ, etc., etc. Thanks, Kevin. This is most offensive and discriminatory to the majority of the population. Vala Lawrence is the Minister of Health for all Guyanese. David Granger is the President for all Guyanese. When he goes to make an address to the nation as President, he is addressing all Guyanese. But he goes and he does it in a green shirt sometimes. It's most offensive because he's not governing for APNU and AFC supporters. He's the president for all of Guyana. He doesn't understand that. Vola Lawrence is not the Minister of Health for Christians. She's the Minister of Health for all Guyanese. Christians, Muslim, Hindus, Afro-Guyanese, Indo-Guyanese, Portuguese people, Chinese, Amerindian. They're all Guyanese, whether they support you or not. When you take office, you take off your political cap, you take off your party cap, and you put on the cap of the nation. You are then a public figure. You are a public servant, just like the teachers, just like the nurses, just like the police officers. You are a public servant. There is a reason you call it public servants, because you serve the public. And the government is no exception to that. The president is no exception to that. He's a public servant. But he needs a motorcade of 4 outriders and 6 cars when he's going from place to place. I saw also yesterday that the Linden Call Center, there's been a contract signed, so we don't have a budget for 2020, but they signed a contract to revamp the Linden Call Center to the tune of $116 million, $116 million to revamp or renovate the Linden Call Center. The call center which Kathy Hughes closed, that was providing 80 plus jobs to Lindeners. She closed that. She closed that call center that the PPP built and had over 80 Lindeners employed there. She sent them home. Now, in 2020, when elections are less than 2 months away, and they have been unconstitutional for more than a year now, now they see the importance of revamping the Linden call center. Lindeners, do not be fooled. The PPP did more for Linden than APNU can ever dream of doing for Linden. And I have my facts for that too. Now, finally, before I have to take some calls. I've been going on for a while, but finally, before I go to the phone lines, I just want to remind everyone out there that this election campaign, like I said before, is not about Afro and Indo-Guyanese. It's not, we do not want a divisive election season. The PPP camp, if you look at the images from our rally on Sunday, our campaign launch, and you look at the images from the persons in the crowd, you can see the faces of persons from all walks of life, from every race, every color. Our tent is big. We have the big tent approach, and all are welcome. PPP supporters, APNU supporters who are thinking about voting for the PPP, reach out. You are welcome. Our party is inclusive. Our party will govern for you, will govern for the benefit of all Guyanese, and our policies reflect that. We are not discriminatory in the policies that we implement, like the school cash grant, for example. It didn't benefit a handful of kids, or only Indo-Guyanese kids, or the kids who we know are PPP supporters. Every child who was in public school received that $10,000 cash grant. And we have committed publicly and in our manifesto that we will restore that immediately, and that we have plans to increase that to $50,000 over the next 5 years. We have a detailed plan, and we have published that plan. So we're not coming to you like David Granger and saying we have a plan, take our word for it. We have a plan. We have been going door to door distributing that plan. distributing that manifesto. And this month, the full version of it will be available. Read it. We encourage you to read it so that you will know what you are voting for. That is our contract to you. That is what we're presenting to you. This is what we will do for you. These are the obligations that we have given ourselves. Vote for us. If you accept that, at the end of 5 years, you will give us, you will have a chance. The PPP will ensure that you have a chance to give us your performance appraisal in 2025. And you don't have to worry about the PPP trying to take away your freedom or get rid of democracy. We are lovers of democracy, lovers of freedom. And so we urge persons to please make these elections about the issues and let us have a peaceful election season. All parties should be allowed to campaign freely. And, you know, we still have not heard a condemnation from David Granger himself on concerning the attack, condemning the attack on the PPP activists in Lane Avenue. But they are the decent bunch. Anyway, the phone line is going. Let's go to the phone lines. Caller, good evening.
Hello, good night, Susan.
Good night.
The crime rate is increasing more. I'm a taxi driver, and this is back hijacking cars. Friday afternoon, I work in front of Republic Bank on Water Street as a taxi driver. I'm getting hired to go to the East Coast at Manchipo by Manchipo Market. I was beaten bad by a bandit for my car key.
This happened to you?
This man beat me bad at the Manchipo Market quarter to 5 Friday afternoon for my car key. All in my head, I was hospitalized. Residents, I want to thank the residents at School Road, Manchipo, to come out. All the residents come out and assist me to catching this man. Call the police on BV police station for arrest this man. The man's a well-known carjacker of the East Coast. And when he go in BV station, the man asked the CID ranks how much money I have to pay this car man and pay after we lose from BV station. The police take my vehicle, they will launch my vehicle by BV station, and we can't drive my own car. I was beaten bad, falling down. Put me in a taxi. The police we can't take me with a police vehicle. Put me in a taxi and put me in a taxi to Georgetown Hospital. I was admitted and we have to pay Georgetown Hospital $15,000 for CT scan at public hospital Friday night. I was admitted and stay in public hospital till Saturday afternoon. When I go back BV for uplift my car, get my car. Go back Sunday, they take me from BV to Sparanda. Take out the man on the lockup. The man come on the lockup as a driver. How much money you want, I pay you, and I pay the CID now. And if you don't take the money, the CID will take the money and we will release from Sparanda lockup. And I'm so paid. I gave a statement and everything. And yesterday, BV CID released the man from Sparanda lockup. And I'm a taxi driver. My car needed to get hijacked at Manchipo on Friday. I'm calling for the crime chief to do something with the carjacker himself, the carjacker himself. Because every day, thieving in Georgetown, all over this country. And the commissioner of police have 4 deputy commissioner with you. They got to do something. At BV station and Sparanda station. I'm begging somebody to listen what I'm going through. Because I got 5 children to look after. And I'm pain, I'm sick, I can't even walk in peace right now. And the man with thief in car, BV station lose the man. Lose him for go back on the road for get business with them.
Caller, I am truly disturbed and I'm really sorry that you had to go through that. I know that I recognize your voice because I know you call in.
At School Road. They help me out a lot. They pick me up. They put me in a vehicle,
well, I'm happy,
and that is me.
I'm happy to hear that. I'm happy to hear that we haven't lost our humanity.
No, that's very nice. School Road, Manchipo people, I'm thanking you for helping me Friday night, Friday afternoon. And I'm calling for the commando for C Division for do something at BV station. Imagine the policeman can't came into the hospital. I falling down in BV station. Somebody rang to the small my girl in the station. And the police car for a taxi. I haven't got money for me. I haven't got to pay a taxi from BV station to public hospital. When I go to public hospital, I got to find $15,000. I have the receipt to show for those CT scan.
Yes, I'm aware that you have to pay for
You
CT
have to pay, and
scans.
if you want a medical from public hospital, you have to pay $5,000 for police report. $5,000 you got to pay. Yeah.
Caller, thank you very much for coming through. I hope you feel better
I'm
soon.
calling from the crime chief to do Mr. Kingston to do something on the east coast of the crime. Taxi drivers need protection. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Thank you
Right.
very much for calling and sharing your story with us. It's truly sad. I recognize his voice. He calls in on the program very often. And I'm really sorry you had to go through that, sir. But you know what you have to do. Come March 2nd, 2020, this is overbearing. And we still don't even have the Minister of Security admitting that crime is an issue, that crime is a problem. He's still in denial about that. He's more concerned about negotiating his position as Prime Minister rather than focusing on the position and holding the portfolio that he currently has, which is Minister of Public Security. That's not a priority for Kemraj Ramjitan. Caller, good evening.
Hi, good evening. I just called in to raise my concern. And my concern is that, I hear so much about politics from both sides, but I'm not here to addressing thieving, and thieving is a big issue with politicians. When the PPP was in government, the APN, was accusing the PPP of thieving. Now the PPP is accusing the APN of thieving, and I'm not hearing people putting any measures in place to deal with politicians talking about putting measures in place to deal with thieving. The thieving is pushing people into poverty. Is it thieving from politicians? Things that building materials that a regular person would buy a sack of cement for $2,000 in the store. A contractor would buy it for $10,000 with tax money, and I don't hear politicians speaking nothing about this thing. I'm really glad to hear something about some measures they're going to put in place to deal with thieving by government, ministers, politicians in general. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, caller. We have addressed this several times. When the PPP were in office, they were the most corrupt bunch. That was the line in 2015 by the APNU AFC. The PPP ministers were so corrupt and stealing all the money, and they're gonna go to jail and all of this. That was the rhetoric. So far, all they have done is parade a few members of the PPP in front of the court, but have not convicted or found any money in any PPP member's account that shouldn't be there. They haven't found any of this money that they said that the PPP stole. Added to that, they are in there now. It's their turn, they're in government. And what are they doing? The PPP passed legislation to form the Integrity Commission so that every person who holds public office must make their declarations annually to the Integrity Commission. They are in office now. Even in opposition, the APNU AFC members never made declarations to the Integrity Commission. How are we going to hold politicians accountable? We have these systems in place. It's not that we don't have them. They're on the books. They're on paper. The PPP passed that legislation. That is to ensure transparency and accountability to the people of Guyana. But the government, including the president, do not make declarations to the Integrity Commission. They have disbanded the Integrity Commission. With all of their talk about transparency and accountability before taking office in 2015, they have done it. They are not taking responsibility for anything. They don't care. That's the bottom line. They don't care. They are in there to look after themselves. My guess is they know they're coming out in March this year. So they try to hold on for one extra year to see how much more they can steal in the meantime. And then on March, they can kiss the government goodbye, kiss the country goodbye, and they're off with everything that they stole for the last 5 years, have the country in debt. If you look at the statement of assets and liabilities at the close of business in December 2019. Kevin, can you bring up this statement of assets and liabilities? Public deposits, look there. It's at negative $76 billion, $861 million. That is the statement of our assets and liabilities, Guyana's assets and liabilities, December 2019. We are in debt, people. They took a government with reserves in 2015, and they have put us in debt. We added to this, we have the $10 billion billed by Exxon that we have to pay. That's what they're doing to our country. They are impoverishing the nation. So now when the PPP goes back in there, we have all of these debts to clear. This is 1992 all over again. Because when the PPP took office in 1992, we were up to our eyeballs in debt. 153% of revenue was used to service debt. When we left office in 2015, 5% of total revenue collected was used to service debt, which means 95% of revenue collected by government, collected by APNU AFC, 95% remained with them. Only 5% went to pay debt. Now look at this debt. Look at what the PPP has to go and clean up the mess. That's what the PPP got to do. After March 2nd. So, I hear your concerns, callers. You have to do your own research. You have to do your own reading. You can't trust them when they come to you with these false promises and these empty words and these declarations that David Granger likes to make. What is a decade of development? He makes these declarations and they're supposed to somehow magically come true. The decade of development is not supported by a plan for development. But the PPP has a plan, a path to prosperity. That is what our plan is called, a path to prosperity. And we have presented that to the nation. So I am out of time. I thank you very much for tuning in this evening. I look forward to being in Better Hope tomorrow. I have a public meeting there. Those who are there, please come out and join that meeting. We're in Better Hope tomorrow, and we're in many, many other places. I can only say where I'll be, but there are many, many other meetings going on every day. And please listen to our leaders. Please cooperate with your local community organizers and ensure that you support them. Make sure that you go out and vote on March 2nd. Hand the APNU AFC your no confidence motion, your no confidence vote. Hand it to them on the 2nd of March, and that is their performance appraisal this year. So I thank you very much, and I will see you next year. I will see you, next week. Thank you very much.